Hi everyone, my name is Gayathree and this is my friend Ayushi Agarwal. The two of us are from India.
And together we participated in the Nelson Mandela Moot competition last year, representing the University of Oxford.
We just wanted to share our experience participating in this competition with all of you and encourage you to participate as well.
And hopefully also share a few of the tips that helped us.
Yeah. So I think our journey began when we first read the Moot problem. And both of us are very passionate about human rights and were studying human rights at Oxford at that point. And so we were really excited when we realized that all these really topical issues in human rights were being addressed in a Moot code problem. And I think that's what really got us excited about this Moot in the first place. And so it started off with us participating in an internal selection round at the university, and this was extremely competitive and saw some really, really good quality argumentation and good quality judging. So it was quite the foundation for our participation in this competition, and also the foundation for how well we did at the competition itself, because it gave us a lot of practice and experience tackling judges' questions. So after the internal selection rounds, we were chosen to represent our university, and then we began working on the memorials. We had already submitted a sort of a skeletal draft of our memorial for the internal selection round, and that formed the basis for the memorial that we ultimately submitted for the Nelson Mandela Moot. I think sources-wise, what really helped us, apart from the treaties themselves, were the general comments produced by treaty bodies on these treaties. So the Human Rights Committee's general comments especially were extremely helpful for us to understand the exact contours of this right. And it also kind of led us to a lot of the case law that we relied on. But apart from these UNHRC cases and decisions, a wealth of case law we ultimately ended up using in our memorials came from the regional courts, such as the European Court of Human Rights, as well as the Inter-American Court of Human Rights. And the Moot obviously really values diversity, and therefore your memorial should reflect varied sources and varied perspectives on the law.
And so after the skeletal memorials as well as the oral rounds for these internals at University of Oxford, we thought that we had already done around 50 to 60% of the work, which held us in good stead when we finally received the email from the organizers that we had made it to the international rounds. We were very excited, of course, because it's such a big deal to be able to argue at the United Nations in the first place. Unfortunately, we had our exams just a week before the international rounds began, so we were quite stressed. And so I think in that timeline, the fact that we had done a significant amount of preparation through the internal rounds already really helped us. So that is something that we would advise you to do as well. Be careful about deadlines that can come up close to the international rounds, and try to keep your preparation done with at least a significant portion of it and not leave it to the last moment. Even in terms of the orals preparation for the international rounds, we tried to reach out to people who had either done this Moot before or who had done other human rights Moots before, because we thought that they would be able to offer us more streamlined advice and guidance, and they did. So we tried to schedule 2 to 3 rounds every day for the week that we had in between the end of our exams and finally the flight to Geneva. I'm sure we were still questioning each other even on the flight and laughing along with it, and also feeling excited about our time in Geneva. And I think the most important thing, of course, is that both Gayathree and I, along with our coach, who has a terrific sense of humor, had a lot of fun, and we just thoroughly enjoyed the problem so much that we saw it not just as a challenge, but also as a really fun opportunity.
And then we landed in Geneva, which was a completely different ball game altogether. And it was very, very exciting to be at the United Nations itself, because we were just feet away from the Human Rights Council, from the International Law Commission, and they were all in session when we were in Geneva. So these were bodies that actually laid the foundations of international human rights law, and just to be at that institution felt very, very nice. Apart from that, I think the Moot also, like I said, values diversity. And so we had the chance to interact with participants from across the world, participants from every single continent. And that also meant that you could see how diverse their understanding of law was in the way they presented arguments, because we also, in a sense, felt the real divide that there is between like a Western perspective on human rights law and a Global South perspective on human rights law. So it was an incredible learning experience. And other than that, just to be able to speak to people from different countries was very exciting. And yeah, we had a lot of fun throughout the course of the competition.
And I remember the quarterfinals and the semifinals very distinctly. In the quarterfinals, we went up against a francophone team, and we had to use a live translation with one of those really cool headpieces that all of us were using for the first time. It was quite a challenge, and we were quite intimidated, of course. But when we saw that everything was unfolding quite smoothly, we also got to experience that entire United Nations setting firsthand. So that was absolutely wonderful. And in the semi-finals, we were up before an 11-judge bench, which is the largest bench I have faced. And again, it was quite a ride, because the round was a very close round. And when we finally found out that we had made it to the finals, our team was so excited. It was very hard to prepare that night because we wanted to eat really good food. And then when we found out that we would be judged by judges who have been in the European Court of Human Rights, in the International Court of Justice, the Inter-American Court of Human Rights, members of ILC, we were absolutely astounded, and we were just so grateful for the opportunity. And the finals were quite nail-biting, I would say. I mean, just sitting in the United Nations General Assembly Hall, knowing all of the things that have gone on in that hall previously, it was such an overwhelming feeling. And I think we were just, maybe already so occupied with our thoughts of how lucky we were, and then it was revealed that we had won. I don't think it really sank in at that moment. And all of the people who we had even gone up against previously were so encouraging and kind. They came up to us, and we had become friends by then. So it was just a really lovely and warm feeling.
I guess we will now jump right into the question of whether we have any tips for you. I'm going to start with a really, really boring and also obvious one, which is that you should practice as much as you can before going for this competition, because it's really good to get a sense of the kinds of questions that people might ask you. And again, I think it's also important not to practice with the same person again and again, but do rounds with different people, because they will offer you different perspectives on what the law should be and on whether your argument works for them or not. So see the practice rounds as a learning experience. You need to walk out of that practice round knowing how to change your argumentation to convince each person, because ultimately mooting it's the skill of being persuasive. Take your practice round seriously.
Yeah, and in fact, one way in which you can make the most out of a practice round is that ask your teammate to record the questions that are asked, and then after the round is done, try to actually write down the answers. And the answers don't have to be the ones that you actually stated during the round. Keep thinking more about them, see if you can substantiate them with better authorities. So you will see that by the end of it, you will have a question bank. And in most cases, it will cover like at least 80% of the questions that will actually be posed to you during the round. So it could be a really, really helpful resource. Having a great rapport with your teammate can really be very helpful, not only because it helps you enjoy the entire process, but also because nobody is as knee-deep in it as your teammate. So both Gayathree and I were constantly helping each other out by offering suggestions on our respective parts of the memorial and also on our speeches. So it doesn't even have to be too significant, but knowing that your teammate has seen all of your rounds and has therefore also seen in what ways you have grown can be a very, very encouraging thing throughout the process.
And very often there might be inconsistencies in what you are saying and in what your teammate is saying. So doing these rounds together is really important to identify those inconsistencies and even them out before you go to a judge, because they are bound to spot inconsistencies.
Right. And I guess the final piece of advice we would like to offer, and I hope this doesn't sound cliche, is that don't forget to have fun. This is definitely the most fun Moot that we have been to because of how warm it is in its ethos and spirit. The Moot problem for this year too is absolutely incredible, and it just offers so much opportunity for exploration of the different issues within human rights law. Especially if you're enthusiastic about building a career in human rights, this is a perfect place for you to grow and learn more.
All the best for the Moot Court competition. Take the competition out of it and just enjoy it as an experience.
All the best and bye-bye.